this will take some time. And you need to understand, Ismail, now what do you need to, it's not about the project itself. You need to look at the railway systems and you need to see how a project is built up, how projects are done in Pakistan, especially international projects, especially with China. Kis tarah hota hai, how are they done? So we are going to see understanding CPEC, pehle to ye, then we are going to see the institutional mechanisms. Institutional mechanisms, that means how, which departments of the government of Pakistan, which departments and ministries of the government of China, which companies, how are they interacting with each other, how this project will be finalized, who is giving approvals, who is giving what kind of approvals, what is the role of different ministries here, what is the role of different ministries and departments in China. That is what is meant by institutional mechanism. Which institutions will be required, and how are they going to interact with each other? Now saying that the ML1 project is $9.3 billion, they're very easy. But who's going to do it? Kya hoga isme? What will be the role of Ministry of Finance? What will be the role of the Ministry of Planning? What will be the role of other ministries? So that is then the institutional mechanism. This needs to be understood, especially in respect of China. Here, you're not doing this project alone. It is not about getting a project approved by the Planning Commission or our different bodies, ECNEC and all this. PC1 has been approved, so everything is done. No, it is not that. There is another country, another state, independent country, which is with you and which is sort of associated in this project, and which help is coming from, most of the help in financial terms and technical terms will be coming from China. So that institutional mechanism of China also needs to be understood. Then we will talk of the upgradation project, and of course, in the end, we will see why this project is required. Why? Every project should, if you can answer the question why, then you need to, you can only answer why. Unless you understand the project, you can't answer the question why. So you have why this project? So that needs to be understood, and that will only be understood when you go through details of the project. Okay, what is this project all about? So initially, as I said, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is a corridor leading to other economic sectors, other countries. So we are going to see how that is. Now this here shows a part of the world map. The world, I don't say it is a world map because North America and South America are not here. So here, let me see if I can get that. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir, clearly.
Achha. So now, as I said, this is a map showing China, showing Pakistan, India, Middle East, Europe, Australia in the south, and Africa. So this entire place is Africa. Ye sara Africa, ठीक है? Now here is Europe. ये खराब हो गया. Now here is Pakistan. Here is China. Can you see my pointer?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा. Wherever you feel कि जी कुछ नहीं पता, please ask. right? ऐसे ना हो कि वो मैं one way वो बात कर रहा हूँ, because frankly this is interesting. और आपका जो अगला पेपर आएगा ज्यादातर it will all be about this kind of thing. Now this is India, ठीक है? पाकिस्तान के ईस्ट में इंडिया, पाकिस्तान के नॉर्थ ईस्ट में चाइना, पाकिस्तान का ये जो वेस्टर्न पार्ट है ये अफगानिस्तान, और पाकिस्तान के वेस्ट में ईरान. सो ये सारी कनेक्टिविटी है. एंड एज आई सेड, द प्रेसिडेंट शीज बेल्ट एंड रोड इनिशिएटिव, जिसको BRI कहते हैं, CPEC is part of that initiative. Now, what is that initiative of China, where China-Pakistan Economic Corridor then makes sense? President Xi thinks, now China thinks, that connecting China to Europe here, this red line that you see, connecting China to Australia here, and Indonesia, Malaysia, in sab ke saath, not only one country, not Australia alone. Yeah, this is here is Indonesia, entire ye bhi Indonesia. Here you have Singapore and Indonesia. Here is Malaysia. And let me tell you that they are investing a lot of money in these countries in their infrastructure. Yeah, Vietnam, Thailand, Burma, Myanmar, jisko abhi kehte hain, ye lot of investment is going on. This corridor connecting China to Burma, connecting China to Thailand. There are already rail lines going in, already developed through this Belt and Road Initiative. Now this blue arrow means it's another corridor. This yellow arrow means it is another corridor, part of the Belt and Road Initiative. I don't know, maybe they call it China-Australia corridor or China-Indonesia-Australia corridor. This green arrow is relevant to us. Ye green arrow then represents China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And when you look at the green arrow does not start from Shanghai. It does not start here from Beijing, is somewhere here. Beijing se nahi hai. It is in Western China connecting to Pakistan. And Western China and Shanghai are 3,000-4,000 kilometers apart. You see, it's a huge distance from Western China to Shanghai, almost the same from Western China to Karachi. Shanghai is a port and Karachi is a port. Now, in the next maps, I'm going to explain to you that Shanghai, why can't they have it? Why can't the goods go to Shanghai and then come all the way? वो अगले में दिखाऊंगा. I don't want to go into details here. Then look at our Pakistan Economic Corridor, the arrow, green arrow, which comes from Western China, goes into Pakistan here, into Karachi, into Gwadar. Gwadar is here, right? Then these arrows then split. One goes into Middle East, and another arrow going into Africa. So that when I said it is a corridor, so this entire corridor, this corridor, Pakistan, China, Western China, ye corridor, they want to develop this economically. They want to develop the infrastructures. They want to develop the energy sector. They want to develop the industrial sector. They want to develop, your environment, and help the people to upgrade their lives in the capacities of this area, and then connect to the Middle East here and connect to Africa. And now we're going to see kya hai. And they are connecting to the world, so they are also connecting to Europe. There are trains going from China into via Mongolia, via Russia, on to Europe. Abhi bhi chal rahi. There's, I think, a story some time back that a train left China and went right up to Germany and on to France and England. So they're doing it. But as I said, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is much more important. It has a great importance for China because it is opening up a lot of the world here, entire Middle East, and entire Africa through the ports of Karachi and Gwadar. And that is why we see why Gwadar is so important from the China-Pakistan economic corridor point of view. It is important from Pakistan's point of view. It is important from China's point of view. समझ गए? Now, this is almost a world map, except on your here, somewhere here is America, not very close by, but 2,000-3,000 kilometers away in the Atlantic. North America and South America nahi hai. But then China is connecting to the US by going into this area. इधर से जाके यहाँ on the right is दुनिया गोल है ना? It's not flat. So North America, South America are placed there. But I would again request you to please look at the maps. Occasionally देख लिया करें, महीने में एक दफा. It is very interesting. See where the countries are placed, how they are placed. Why do we keep saying that Pakistan has a geostrategic importance? Why? Because we are placed in an area, and the geography is such that we have a huge country, India, on our east. We have a huge, most fast developing country economy, China on the northeast. We have northwest Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is not an ordinary country. It is not some country like Congo, Angola, or Zambia, or maybe Chad or Niger. They are also poor, some of them are poor countries. But because of its strategic importance, Afghanistan has always been in the limelights. So that way it becomes very important. Then on the west is Iran. Iran again is a very important country from geopolitical situations, from otherwise, from energy point of view, from it has a lot of importance for the world. So this is the bigger now thing. This is the Belt and Road Initiative, of which CPEC is a part. And that is why this is the vision of Chinese, and especially vision of President Xi, the current president. He said, let us open up China. So China is opening up. Unfortunately, most of the world is closing the borders. America doesn't want to, when you look at their policies, they are looking inwards now. China is looking outwards. It is developing in a big way. Now, Pakistan's geostrategic location, as I said, we keep saying geostrategic, but important. Actually, we have done nothing about it. And we have not exploited that potential geopolitical location. We have not exploited it much. Uski wajah hai. Now, this is Pakistan, right? And generally, isliye ke wo corridor, I'm trying to show you the corridor. As I said, on the India, let us see now. And this is that corridor, Pakistan-China economic corridor. China, the part of China which is connected to our corridor, which is connected to Pakistan, and which is relevant to China-Pakistan economic corridor. Now, when you look, China is a huge country. On the west, a lot of China, right up to Shanghai and Hong Kong and Beijing. And frankly, now this is my personal view. We have nothing to do with those areas as so far as China-Pakistan economic corridor is concerned, except for decision making. Decision making, why? Because Beijing is the capital. Shanghai is a huge sort of industrial area, industrial city, and a port. So वहाँ फैसले होते हैं. But those decisions are pertaining to China-Pakistan economic corridor, and the corridor comprises of this yellow part, Pakistan, and this part of China, which is Western China. And this, let me again just spoil all the places. Somewhere here is Urumqi, and here is Kashgar. Here is our Gujarat, और यहाँ से Karakoram highway comes somewhere like this, This is somewhere Haveli, and then Texla. यहाँ पे Peshawar आ जाता है. I hope मेरा थोड़ा सा, I hope I can manage it. Here you have Islamabad and Rawalpindi here. And then our ML1 goes like this. This is Lahore somewhere here. Then it goes like this. Multan. Hyderabad. Karachi. Here is Gwadar. Gwadar has yet to be connected by rail. But in the future, we have a program of connecting. Here, this place is Rodi. And then Rodi is connected here to Quetta and on to Taftan here, Iran. Here, Lahore is connected to Wagah, India. And here we are connected to Torkham and Landikotal. And here we are connected to Afghanistan at Chaman. So very frankly, having such a connectivity, international connectivity, is very rare. And we are very well placed. We are connected to India, we are connected to China. Of course, we are not connected by rail to China, but India we are, Iran we are, Afghanistan we are almost to Chaman and this place. So when you look at this corridor, China is investing a lot of money in the Western China part. Because let me just, इसको मैं थोड़ा सा color change करूं. As I said, here is Urumqi, huge. It's a so fast developing. Frankly, if you go to Urumqi, it is something now like, you know, with the high-rise buildings and all, it is as good as any big city of Europe or America. ऐसे लगता है Manhattan है, frankly. And here is our Kashgar. And here is Punjab, जहाँ से Karakoram highway connected है. So China is investing heavily in this part of the world, in Western China. You can say, you can equate it maybe something like the Balochistan of China. So they want to appease the people here. यहाँ Muslim populations बहुत हैं, और कहते हैं वो हैं, and some other Turkoman tribes, Uzbeks भी हैं, और ये different लोग हैं. And here you can see it is connected to Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, or ऊपर Kazakhstan, China connected इनके साथ. So this area is being developed. So they want not only to develop this area, but the Chinese want to develop this corridor, our corridor also. To do that, they want to develop, as I said, the infrastructure, and then ML1 upgradation project becomes very important. Now, when you look at it, without connecting Gwadar by rail, now our program, the program was to connect Gwadar by rail to here. This feasibility has already been done. We would like to connect it somewhere here, Jacobabad ke paas. So you're connected. Then from here, of course, this is ML2 SHRE, goes somewhere here like this. Then this is ML3. So if we can connect Gwadar to our network here, somewhere near Jacobabad, then the entire rail network can be used by China. Initially, as I said, industrial areas here, industrial areas here, industrial areas in other small cities, उनका जो raw material can come from the world over and be brought to Gwadar यहाँ पे, and to Karachi, taken by rail in bulk, offloaded at Havelian and on to by Karakoram highway on to Kashgar and to Urumqi or ye. So this is the story of the geostrategic location that we have, but unfortunately we have not made use of it up to now. Any questions up to now?
No, sir.
Any questions? Or there are, you know, efforts being made to connect, maybe to put Afghanistan into, connect to CPEC, connect Iran to CPEC. But then, of course, it will not be CPEC, then we'll have to call it something else. But this is basically, you should remember that this is the corridor that we are talking of always, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. वो ये है कि ये इलाका है. This is the corridor. And where is the corridor leading? The corridor leading is leading into Africa. Ye, here. And the corridor is leading into Middle East here. Why Middle East important? Middle East important because it is important because most of your energy, your oil, your gas, the Chinese would like to have a share of that energy, and it can be easily brought into Gwadar here, refined here, and then brought by pipeline here into China, Western China. So ये सारा किस्सा है, optic fiber, ये वो. So this corridor is being used. But then this corridor, if it is used, we need to upgrade the lives of the people. और वो कैसे? Again, through infrastructure development, through energy development, through industrial development. Industrial development may we have this concept of special economic zones. वो क्या है? एक इधर है, ML1 के ऊपर है, यहाँ पे भी हैं, यहाँ पे भी हैं, यहाँ पे भी हैं. But the Chinese want KG SEZs should be on the located on the ML1, so that transportation of bulk commodities is facilitated to the industrial areas. Or then, of course, okay, as I said, strategic location. Here, India on your east, big country, huge country, developing. We are connected here, and we are connected also here at Monabao is stationing up, Kokrapar. So connectivity is there. Karachi port, of course, agar ye ladai shadai now, and we have an open kind of economic relations, then Karachi port is also suitable for all this area. Delhi, Amritsar, and whatever, Western Punjab. So that is how economic works then. But then politics comes in, then, you know, geo or issues come in. उससे फिर हम खराब हो जाते. So this, as I said, is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and in this you need to understand that the Western China is part of the corridor. Eastern China does not have much to do with it, except for decision making and policy making. Now, why does China want this kind of a corridor? Let us see now. Because it, as I said, economics, very important cheese. Economic, if you have your economics right, most of things go right then, and people are happy, people are given opportunities, people are given choices, people are given, ease of business हो जाती है, cost of doing business कम हो जाता है, cost of commodities कम हो जाती है, you become stable. Now, इसमें we need to, अब मैं most of the things I'll be flagging, I'll just be pointing out कि क्या क्या चीजें देखनी. Now, when you talk of China-Pakistan economic corridor, it is not it. You are working in a global sort of economy. You are working in a global world. So, usme, when you talk of a program like China-Pakistan economic corridor, one has to be very, very cautious of international and regional dynamics. Now, international and regional dynamics kya hai? When we are here talking of CPEC, we should be aware of what is going on in your surrounding, in your neighboring countries. When you talk of CPEC, you need to know how India is going to react to a project like CPEC. Historically, we have been enemies. Historically, we have been at loggerheads with each other. Historically, they would, not like to see us develop. We would not like to see them develop. So those in that context, then regional dynamics for CPEC, one has to be very careful to see how India is going to react, how Iran is going to react in the neighborhood, how Afghanistan is going to react. And Afghanistan, when you talk of Afghanistan, now that we have a different government run by the Taliban, it is a different story. But for the past 20, 25 years, there were 20 years almost, there were about 40 countries operating in Afghanistan under NATO, under US supervision. So Afghanistan was not a country owned by the Afghans or by the Afghanis. वहाँ पे हर किस्म की दुनिया थी. So one has to be very careful. How is America going to react to this? How is the UK going to react? How is the Australia going to react? Because they're part of Afghanistan, and they were part of Afghanistan. When CPEC came, America was here as a neighbor. So anything happening on the Afghan border was not, you were not only dealing with Afghans, you were dealing with the Americans. So, us point of view say then that has to be kept in view. That is what I'm calling regional dynamics. One has to understand all this. Then in the north, in Central Asia, there's Russia. How will that country react? India's reaction. I remember very clearly, very vividly, that once there was a statement by the Chief of Naval Staff of India saying that Gwadar is like, is a threat to India. So now, if it is a threat to India, how can you develop something? So if you want to develop, of course, you have to keep these things in view for a country which thinks that Gwadar will be a threat, especially with the Chinese coming in and developing it in a big way. So they will always be there to sort of spoil the development, to sabotage it, to slow it down. Now this then is where our national interest and our vital national interests, wo kaun se hain? How do you go about doing it? Do you succumb to, if America tells you, okay, forget CPEC, do we forget it? Now this is where then leadership comes in. This is where political leadership comes in. This is where your leadership in departments comes in. Kaise, how do you lead it? This is where then we need to define our national interest. Okay, where our national interests lie. So I hope abhi tak kuch clear hai.
Yes, sir. Clear.
ठीक है?
Yes,
तो
sir.
ये सिर्फ मैं बता रहा हूँ, ये सिर्फ इंजीनियरिंग नहीं है. Now when you are all engineers, when you look at CPEC, आप देख रहे हो यार टनल कितना है, इसके कर्व कितना है, इसकी डिग्री क्या है, इसके डायमेंशंस क्या है. इट इज नॉट अबाउट दैट. नाउ वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ द सिस्टम्स. तो ये भी सिस्टम का हिस्सा है, दिस जियोपॉलिटिकल थिंग. You have to understand, where does China lie? What is China's thinking? What is Pakistan's thinking? What are the other people thinking in the region? You may have the best, most brilliant engineering idea. वो बिल्कुल irrelevant हो जाता है unless you understand. So this is what, then how do you deal with the project? I'm just trying to tell you कि ये चीजें हैं, you have to look at that. You have to look at these things. These are, you cannot take up a project in isolation. Then, as I said, India, Iran, Afghanistan are neighbors. What is their reaction? Will they benefit from it? Maybe our development of ML1 project under CPEC is some kind of and has an adverse effect on these countries. So that pros and cons, the good part, the positives, the negatives, they have to be weighed about. And then, of course, you make you try to smoothen these things out wherever there are some negativity, wherever there are some objections, and you make these countries part of it. You tell them you benefit from this. But of course, you have to keep your own interests first and then go ahead. So these are things that I'm saying that, okay, you have to, CPEC is okay, but look at India, look at Iran, and look at Afghanistan. And international regional dynamics. 1 minute, sir. Alamgir. زر تقوم ما lecture ده بيقدر تقوم. So international regional dynamics is beyond neighborhood, beyond Central Asia, Russia, America, other countries in the region. Middle East, kya kar raha hai? What will their reaction be? And then India, Iran, Afghanistan, these are of course our neighbors. One has to look at them. What attitudes do they have? Are they against the projects? If they are against the projects, how do you neutralize that? You know, kal Gawazar bana rahe hain, and India comes in, as it says, it's a threat, and you start another war, some kind of a thing. Then in this, one has to look at Xinjiang. Now Xinjiang is the इसका नाम अभी change हो गया. It's an independent autonomous area, जिस तरह as I said, almost synonymous with Balochistan of Pakistan. So the Chinese want to develop this area. There's a Muslim population. There are people who are trying to exploit the Muslims of that area, और वो कहते हैं जी China के खिलाफ हैं और China इनको जुल्म कर रहा है. And China, you know, there's a lot of propaganda. Now, who's doing that propaganda? Of course, there are countries who are against China. There are countries who are against Pakistan. So they're trying to exploit that sentiment. Xinjiang. So Xinjiang is part of the corridor. Huge area which is part of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. One has to look at this socio-cultural इनकी क्या dynamics हैं, इनकी economy कैसी है Xinjiang की, where I said Khunjrab है, ये right up to Urumqi and all these places. What kind of development is going on? इनके क्या socio-cultural किस किस्म के लोग हैं, Muslims हैं, तुर्कमान हैं, Turkish background के हैं, Mongol background के. So that these people will be directly affected. So you need to know what this Xinjiang is and what kind of a region this is. Then the corridor also passes through Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. Now, why have I pointed out Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan is because Kashmir is Azad Kashmir has an independent government. We treat it as almost as an independent country, of course, held by Pakistan, but it has its own president, it has its own sort of prime minister, and it is a disputed territory. The UN resolutions have said that this is a disputed territory. Resolutions have been passed, उस पे कोई action नहीं हो रहा, but for the last 70 years or years after independence, this is a disputed territory. Now, in disputed territories, any kind of development that goes on has to be also be approved by the world, by United Nations. The World Bank will only come in. Asian Development Bank will only come in. Japanese will only come in. The Germans will only come in if they see that it is not a disputed area. So इसीलिए आप देखते हैं कि कश्मीर में, frankly, these bodies are not there. Why? Because it is disputed area. And this is the claim again of India. As I said, India has not been on good terms. We have never been on good terms with them. So they try to exploit that. How can you have a corridor through Kashmir? How can you have a railway line through Kashmir? How can you have the Karakoram highway and all that? Then Gilgit-Baltistan, it has its own government. It is a separate kind of a government which doesn't have any representation in our National Assembly or in our Senate, although they have their own chief minister, part of as if it is part of Pakistan, but they don't have any representation in our national parliaments. वो भी, there's a claim of India that Gilgit-Baltistan is part of Kashmir. You can't treat it as separate. So these are things, issues that are there. So having these issues in mind, how do you wriggle out of it and how do you have a project coming up? So these are just trying to flag. I'm trying to flag these issues so that at least you know. Now, why does China and Pakistan want a China-Pakistan economic corridor? And as I said, why is it sort of used to Western China? So in bar keh raha hu. Now, this is again a map of the region which shows China, India, Pakistan, Eastern Asia, Burma, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia and Vietnam. ये आ रही हैं ऊपर. रशिया भी नजर आ रहा है. You can see Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, and on to Turkey, and then Africa. So now what I'm trying to give you is economics and transportation. कि क्या हो रहा है? What is happening? Now when you look at this, you see Urumqi, you see Khunjarab, you see Karachi. ठहर मैं फिर मार्कर निकाल दूं. Is the marker of use or ऐसे ही मैं लगाऊं? मार्कर कोई फायदा दे रहा है आपको?
सर सही है उससे सब. यस सर, यस सर.
अच्छा. Up when you look at, as I said, Western China, I said in CPEC, Western China is relevant to Pakistan. Now, as I said, this is all Western China. ठीक है? ये again ये पाकिस्तान और ये हुई हमारा कॉरिडोर है. Now, when you look at Khunjarab here, when you look at Kashgar here, look at Urumqi here. Now, Urumqi, as I said, is a big developing industrial and trade and commerce spot, क्योंकि काफी बड़ा एक जगह बन रही. Now, from Urumqi, if anything, all materials that are coming in for the industry, they are now using Shanghai port and Urumqi, Shanghai. Yeah, it is 4,160 kilometers. 4,160 kilometers. Things have to move from Shanghai port. They come by ship from anywhere in the world. It is transported by rail and by road on to Urumqi, 4,000 kilometers away. From Urumqi, of course, if it has to come to Kashgar area, another 1,800, 1,700 kilometers. यहाँ पे. So now, from Urumqi, anything from Western China, सारे इलाके से going into Shanghai is about 5,000 kilometers average पे कर ले. ठीक है? Now things being exported from this place to Shanghai will take about 5,000 kilometers inland on China. इसमें on ship भी है, on road waterways भी है, road भी है, rail भी है. But 5,000 kilometers. From Shanghai then, it will take the South China Sea. ये सारा South China Sea है. और ये तकरीबन आपको एक मिनट. ये from Shanghai, ये ताइवान के पास. Taiwan is not in favor of China, is not very friendly to China here. And Taiwan is being backed by the US and the European countries to sort of make problems for China here. Japan again is not on very good terms with China. Japan is on good terms with the US and all these countries. South Korea again is not on good terms with China. So this ship has to move into the South China Sea. In South China Sea, here is Vietnam. Here ये जो आपका इसके नीचे आ गया वो Philippines. Now Philippines also has a military base of the US. So they create a lot of problems in South China Sea of route ownership, of island ownerships, and so China को काफी मसले बनते हैं. They create problems for these ships here. So this is not a very safe route. Then it comes, this is about 4,000 kilometers, comes to Singapore. This place is known as the Strait of Malacca. Strait of Malacca is between Singapore and Malaysia. The ship takes that route, then comes on to, if it has to come to Karachi, another 7,400 kilometers, it comes to Karachi. If it Karachi and Middle East, ये तकरीबन 7,500 किलोमीटर का फासला बनता है. Touches here maybe Sri Lanka, जहाँ पे China has a big constructed a big port in here, उसको टच किया. But if it is going to Europe, then 27,000 kilometers it goes via the Suez Canal इधर से and on to Europe. बड़ा लंबा distance पड़ता है. But if when you look at this and the issues that are related and the countries that are sort of and the issues in the South China Sea that had been created for China, then look at the distance here, 1800 kilometers here and about 2000 kilometers here, and you enter the Middle East and you can enter into Africa. So ये है, and here is Gwadar. So that is why you see Gwadar becomes very strategic. यहाँ से ये into China तकरीबन 2,400-500 kilometers and you are into China. And energy corridor, whatever, उसमें optic fiber and this and that, communications and all. And you are connected to Middle East here. ये आसान काम है, ये here. And Africa here. ये सारा अरेबिया है, अफ्रीका यहाँ पे आ जाता. So this then through land and sea route, then we have when you are touching Urumqi, Shanghai, Karachi, it is about 15,000, 16,000 kilometers समझ लें. By land route it becomes 4,500. Just look at it कि कितना बड़ा फर्क है. Now this is where the business people, the economy, the industrialists, that is what they are looking at. 4,500 kilometers and 15,700 kilometers. There's a huge difference. Now, when you convert it into days, when you convert it into fuel cost, when you convert it into freight costs, so yes, there's a huge difference. This 4,500, maybe a train will take not more than 3-4 days, 5 days, maybe 6 days, maybe. Agar if it's an efficient system, upgraded system, freight train from Karachi to Havelian would take maybe 1 day. Then let us say onward by truck, it will take 2 or 3 days to reach Urumqi. On the other hand, when you go via Shanghai, when you go via South China Sea, when you go via Singapore, Strait of Malacca, and you go on to come to Karachi or to the Middle East, it will take you maybe at least 3 weeks. So ये फर्क. Now this is what China is aiming for, and this is where they want efficiency. This is where they want the corridor to develop. ये है. And that is why you see you've had problems in Sri Lanka. ये जो गवर्नमेंट पॉलिटिकल है ना, इसमें चाइना का खराब करने का बड़ा रोल है. तो ये these are things. An easier way would be to get here, लेकिन यहाँ पे all this part, ये बहुत बड़ा हिमालयस माउंटेन्स है, यहाँ कराकोरम रेंज है, हिमालयस है. It is like a huge wall between China and India. So, but now that the Chinese know how to develop things, maybe Havelian to Kashgar, we can have a railway line in the future. And connecting Urumqi to Kashgar, I don't think it is a big problem for the Chinese. So this is how the corridor, this is why the corridor is there. And again, I am going to stress, okay, the corridor is here. This is the corridor. Now the corridor, they want to develop Pakistan, they want to develop Xinjiang and Western China up to Urumqi. Xinjiang के यहाँ पे ये सारे मुसलमान रहते हैं इस जगह. आप देखते होंगे, मैं भी अगर आप फॉलो करें, you will find कि जी ये इसके लिए बड़े प्रॉब्लम्स बन रहे हैं चाइना के लिए. जी वो मुसलमानों पे जुल्म कर रहे हैं और ये कर रहे हैं और वो कर. अब that is politics of course, but we are here looking at ML1 from the economic point of view. ये क्या बकवास है. So now, as I said, कहाँ से आया corridor? President Xi Jinping's vision of one belt, one road. इसको BRI कहते हैं, Belt and Road Initiative. पहले इसका नाम इन्होंने कहा था वन बेल्ट वन रोड, सारी दुनिया को कनेक्ट करना. उसमें चाइना पाकिस्तान इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर is a very, very important aspect and important part of the, and it, frankly, the Chinese also consider it very important that this needs to be done. Then start कैसे हुआ? That President, Chinese Prime Minister, at that time President Lee, of the State Council, he visited Pakistan in May 2013, and the leaders agreed to enhance China-Pakistan cooperation. उस वक्त नाम नहीं था. They said, okay, let us cooperate with each other and let us sort of already this friendship that we have. वो कहते हैं ना, higher than the Himalayas, deeper than the oceans. वो ठीक है. These are all political slogans. But when it comes down to economics, when it comes down to actual working, then of course 2 + 2 should make 4. China is willing to help you out financially. It is willing to help you out technically. But then there has to be a return on that investment. Nobody in the world is going to give you a free loan or a free grant or something like that. But we will see कि loans कैसे आते हैं. But then you have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. Okay, how do we utilize that loan? How do we, at what rates do we get that loan? What kind of technical assistance is required? What kind of technical know-how is available in our country? Even in ML1, when we open up the ML1 project technically, we're going to see we've done a lot of work on this where we think that Pakistan is good enough in a lot of fields. So you don't need Chinese expertise there. We have been running a railway here for 150 years now, maybe 160 years, 70 years. So we are good at it in most of the things. But when it comes to, of course, new technologies, new know-hows, new, especially on the IT side, then maybe there. नहीं.
सर वो सिर्फ ये कह रहा था यस सर, तो वो आवाज ब्रेक हो रही थी सर.
चलो खैर, मैंने अपनी वीडियो बंद कर दी, अब में भी बेहतर हो जाए. तो just as I said, then when two states come to terms to do a project and to cooperate with each other, so एक MOU sign होता है. This is known as Memorandum of Understanding. ये आपको याद, ये चीजें आपको पता होनी चाहिए अभी. MOU broad terms में वो कहते हैं the two countries get together and they say, okay, we will now cooperate with each other in these fields and these terms. ये broader picture होती है. Okay. Then under that MOU, then you go and sign different MOUs. Beyond the MOU is a thing known as MOA. That is the Memorandum of Agreement. That is more binding. Two countries agree to do a certain thing on a broader canvas, broader picture. So then in this ML1 terms, this MOU was signed in 5th July 2013. So that is pehla kaam hua where the two countries signed an MOU in Beijing on 5th July 2013. This is where CPEC started. Okay, and as I said, it is a China-Pakistan economic corridor. Iska naam ye. And I have explained to you more than is required कि China-Pakistan economic corridor क्या है. Frankly, ये बड़े कम लोगों को जो CPEC में involved भी हैं ना, उनको भी पता नहीं होता. So you are lucky in the sense that at least you now know what the connotations are, what the corridor is all about, क्या backgrounds हैं, क्या है, क्यों है, with all those maps that you have seen.
Page,
जी कुछ कह रहे थे? Now, as I said earlier, KG Pakistan Economic Corridor, main purpose is, it is the economic uplift of the corridor area, which comprises of Pakistan and Western China. ये ज़हन में रखें बस. ईस्टर्न चाइना के साथ, बाकी इनके साथ हमारा कोई काम नहीं. हमारा पूरा पाकिस्तान, राइट फ्रॉम गिलगित बल्तिस्तान, कश्मीर, केपी, पंजाब, सिंध, बलूचिस्तान, दिस इज द कॉरिडोर ऑफ पाकिस्तान. एंड वेस्टर्न चाइना, ये उनका कॉरिडोर है. एंड दे वांट थ्रू दिस CPEC, both the countries want the economic uplift. Economic uplift. It is not defense uplift, defense capacity uplifting. It is not social capacity uplifting. It is not political cooperation. It is simply economic. Or economic may, of course, economics may, when you look at it, it means industrialization. It means development of the infrastructure. It means development of the energy sector. It means development of the communication sector. So yeah, these are the main things: ports and shipping, roads, in railways, power plants. ये सारी चीजें. So is how then are we going ahead? वो आगे देखेंगे. As I said, कि वो corridor का again, I mentioned Gilgit-Baltistan earlier. That was meant to just to make you cautious that there are issues here. There are political issues there, regional issues there. यहाँ पे हम corridor को देख रहे हैं कि क्या है. Gilgit-Baltistan is a part of the corridor. Azad Jammu and Kashmir is part of the corridor. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and ex-FATA, या पुराना FATA, अब तो FATA खत्म हो गया. It has been merged into KP. So that entire area is part of the corridor. Punjab, the whole of Punjab is part of the corridor. Balochistan is part of the corridor. Sindh is part of the corridor. And Xinjiang, Uyghur Autonomous Region, जो उनका पूरा region है, that is part of the corridor. So this now constitutes the corridor. What kind of development you want for each of these places or for the entire country? Continuity mein. Now, if ML1 is not passing through Azad Jammu and Kashmir, that does not mean that ML1 should not be done. And Azad Jammu and Kashmir cannot say, okay, you give us connectivity, otherwise we will be opposed to this. Or Balochistan says कि जी हमें इसको क्वेटा के थ्रू ले जाएं. होता है. These are things that need to be looked at. But then the project itself, when you look at it, it has been taken as upgradation of ML1 existing. Then what is being uplifted in the economic uplift of the corridor? क्या चीजें? Let us see. As I said, इसमें energy है, energy generation, transmission, distribution. Energy generation में क्या है? They under CPEC we are building dams in certain areas. One on the Kunhar River, one on the Neelam Jhelum. Maybe some other small dams are coming up. And under CPEC. But then, of course, generation mein, then these power plants are coming up. Punjab mein. Now, these are then initiatives. Of course, the provincial government comes in and different forces come in, different people come in. Kya zarurat hoti hai and who can afford it. Punjab came up with a very, very ambitious program of developing 6 power plants through imported coal all over Punjab. This one of them came up in Saiwal. The rest, of course, because of various reasons, because of maybe political reasons, because of economic reasons. Then some of them went on to CNG, LNG or CNG, I forgot now. LNG, I think. Liquefied gas, जो कतर से आ रही. और तो ये energy, electricity generation, this was at that time a very, very vital aspect of the economy. बिल्कुल तबाही थी 2013-14 में. That is why energy went on top. और बड़े जोर लगाए इन्होंने, काफी energy produce की. I think at that time we were in complete darkness. रात को load shedding 12-12, 14-14 घंटे load shedding. तो उसमें then of course a lot of help was given to us by China, and luckily we came out of that. Then transmission, if you produce energy, it has to be transmitted. ये हमारा, this is a drawback जो कि हमारे मुल्क में है. But then under CPEC, many projects were done where then transmission, carriage of the power to the areas where it is required. और ये areas कौन से होते हैं? ये industrial areas होते हैं, ये production वाले areas होते हैं. You can't say that, okay, let me बिजली produce करें, एक dam बनाएं, and let us take it to some mountainous area in maybe Waziristan or Shob or ये होनी तो चाहिए. But then where are the returns? So वो फिर, of course, these are things that both the countries sit down and they want. Then distribution में we had our issues. So this economic uplift, इसमें भी CPEC का role था. In transport sector, as I said, railways, top priority. The Chinese gave it top priority. Roads, our government gave it top priority. Railways ka project ML1 declared strategic by both the countries. Then pipelines from Gwadar on to China, optic fiber ka, seaport development, lot of development has taken place at Gwadar. Still lot of development is required. Isi tarah in Karachi port, Chinese have invested in 1 or 2 ports. Airports mein Gwadar port, other airports are part of this. And then metros, the orange line you see in Lahore. This is not the end. KC or Karachi Circular Railway aayega. Peshawar mein greater mass transit system, Peshawar greater mass transit system, wo aana hai. So these are things, you know, they will keep on coming. Lahore mein more railway lines are required, more metros are required. Orange line is just one line. For a city of Lahore, which is a metropolis, my little experience, I think there should have been at least 6 or 7 more lines like the orange line, crisscrossing the entire city. Tab jaake you get the economies of scale, and then only you get the actual benefits for the city. Karachi, a city of 20 million people, very frankly, it requires at least 15 such lines, like the orange line. Or wahan ek bhi nahi hai. So we are very unfortunate in that. The thumb rule for metros, railways, mass transit systems in cities, urban centers, the thumb rule is that 1 million people, you need a mass transit, rail-based mass transit system, whether it is underground or overground or on ground, that is a separate thing. So ये है. Unfortunate, हमने इस पे कोई काम नहीं किया. Then economic uplift, the CPEC stresses on the industry. And how does it stress on industry? It says that they'll develop industrial zones, which we call the SEZs, special economic zones. Then they are looking at export processing zones, where production will be completely exported out of the country. But what it helps is brings you a lot of foreign exchange, brings you generates a lot of jobs for the local people. But it is done then, of course, in an economical way, not through cottage industry. Maybe in some areas they would like to have it, but then these Chinese are looking at the bigger picture, bigger industrial zones, and they would like to make use of it in Pakistan. Then industrial parks, we have software parks, that development is there. Then oil and gas, they would like to, is not now very active part of CPEC, but it will be in the future. Refineries, they would like to invest. Exploration in mining, they would like. I remember one of the Chinese team used to come to Punjab and they wanted to invest in the coal mining in this area of Kalabagni, this near Bera and all. But they wanted to do it in a big way, not having the small contractors digging through labor. They wanted mechanized and they wanted the bigger thing so that it could be of industrial use. Coal could come out in a big way. It could be mined. It could be transported. So uske liye bhi rail ka ML1 ka bada zaruri ek hissa tha, but some of that has yet to get through. Gwadar development, ye bada important aspect hai. I personally feel it is going very slow. Should have been very fast development. Gwadar as a port should have been developed. Gwadar as a port developing is essential requirement is connecting it by rail and by road to the national network. So unless it is connected by rail, I really don't think it is going to function, because the bulk commodities that will come in cannot go by trucks. It will be very uneconomical, and that is how. But these are all in the pipeline. As I said, we are slow, but things are there. Maybe because of political reasons. I don't want to go into that detail, but the progress at Gwadar is not very satisfactory as it should have been. Then, of course, general economic uplift, they want the standard of living to go up. They want the capacity of the people to go up. They want the sort of earning capacity to go up, employment to go up. Once this huge activity starts, this will give a big boost to the economy. Financials, just let me tell you that the CPEC started off. China said that we are willing to set apart $45 billion. More than that, provided you give us some projects, provided these projects are financially viable, the Chinese have to assess those projects, whether they will give you a return on investment or not. You see, countries, when they give you loan, they expect that it is going to be returned in some time period at a certain rate. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Even the best of friends in the international community, in international relations, there's a cost to be paid. So, but here is a country which wants you to make use of their finances. And this initially said, we will put aside $45 billion for you. Now, this can go up to $60 billion. I think it's gone up. So that is one aspect where there is money to be made use of. How you make use of it, that is the actual question. And that is where then the Chinese have to agree on a certain project. You may have one of the best projects. If the Chinese thinks that there is not a good return on it, then of course that 45 billion is not available. But having this huge amount available to a country, I think this is unheard of in history. Even when we go back to the IMF every time, we are just looking for 1.5 or $1 billion, and we are looking up for other countries to give us $2 billion or $1 billion, and we come back very happy that IMF has released $1 billion. So look at the amount here, but then how do you make use of it? Where do you make use of it? Which sector do you make use of it? And how are the projects planned? Where then the Chinese and the people, the Chinese government, where it is giving you set aside $45 billion, they have to see how that money is going to be returned. Do you have the capacity of returning it? And then there are, of course, different ways of pledging things and sovereign guarantees and financial returns of different projects. Then once it is established that this is essentially required and the project can give you a good return in the long run or maybe in the short run, then a project goes ahead. Or this 45 billion, as I said earlier, it was for energy sector, transport, Gwadar. This was for initial allocation. Our initial allocation was ML1, $8.2 billion. Your motorways 2.5 and 2.5, I think, as 2.45, etc. And then Orange Line was 1.6 or $1.7 billion. So is there a project side, Gwadar development? These in the energy sector, most of the amount that was pledged, 45 billion, this was also made available to the private sector. The private sector in China, they came up with ideas of developing your energy sector in the form of power plants, coal-driven power plants. So this money was made available through the banks to these companies. They came here, invested, and now they're running and they're selling us energy at a certain rate. And they're making some kind of a there's a return on that investment. By the way, the Chinese do not believe in giving you grants. These are all loans. Grant or loan mein farak hi hai कि grants are free, you don't have to return them. I think a very, very small portion, a very small amount has been given for Gwadar. Maybe it is for Gwadar port or development of airport or something in the runway or something. But that amount is not much. So, Zain se ye nikalein कि there's no country will give you grants except maybe in poverty alleviation, जहाँ पे कुछ countries हैं जो दे देती. So, as I said, most of this amount, this is a wrong thing that people think that the government is going to repay all this loan. ये ऐसे नहीं है. It is in only some sectors where the government will take loans and the government will have to repay it. The like ML1 is a government project. The highways, national motorways, National Highway Authority ने जो loans लिए, these are government loans. But otherwise, especially in energy and in other industrial areas, वहाँ पे investment is all foreign direct investment. इसमें government का कोई हाथ नहीं है. Of course, the government facilitates in providing the land for the industrial areas, providing land quickly through different sections or section 4, section 3, वो power plants को, but the entire direct investment is by the Chinese companies. But this foreign direct investment then is part of that CPEC 45 billion made available. Then, as I said, foreign direct investment is one way. That is the ideal way where foreign companies come, they invest, and then they sell you the product, whether it is energy or whatever. Then government to government concessional loans is also part of the outlay of 45 billion plus ka diya. Then projects like ML1, projects like your Havelian Thakot motorway, your Hatla, Islamabad, Miawali motorway, DI Khan motorway, your Multan Sakkar, and now of course they're talking of Sakkar, Hyderabad. Yeah, it'll come in the private sector again. If it comes up, it'll be a foreign direct investment. It will not be a loan to the government. So government concessional loans in very few areas, maybe some in Gwadar, and mostly in motorways, and bigger part in the railways, especially ML1. And as I said, very few grants. Grants wo cheezein where it is free, you don't have to repay. Then these are interest-free loans. They come in at very small. ये भी बड़े कम है वैसे interest-free loans. But the loan has to be repaid. In grants, you do not have to repay. It is like a gift to you. Interest-free loans, बहुत कम. Then concessional loans. This is where most of the motorways and the ML1 are being taken up. It is under the concessional loans. Now, how do you negotiate these concessional loans depends on Pakistan government and depends on the Pakistani enterprises. So that is where then your expertise come in. How do you project your project? How do you explain the project? How do you make it look financially viable? How do you make it a feasible project? And how do you tell them that this is a feasible project? So then, only then, when they feel that it is a good project, it will give them a return on the investment. Then they talk of concessional loans. And in motorways or the railways, and the motorways, of course, signed the concessional loans were signed. We're going to see kitna diya, kitna dete. What does the World Bank give you? How does the Asian Development Bank give you loans? On what terms, what conditions? How does Japan, JICA, for example, how do they give you loans? So these are different things. But what are the concessional loans in under CPEC that China is willing to give you? Then, of course, there are pure commercial loans where and this amount is also open to commercial loans. Private sector can come. They can come up with a big project. Provinces can come up with projects which on which they can take loans on commercial rates. and then return it back. Most of the world is doing this. Now, as I said, and then negotiations on terms and conditions, that is where your expertise comes in. That is where your projects come in. That is where how your project has been designed, how has the feasibility been done, how has the project been approached, and how are you going to present it to them? To whom are you going to present it? To the financial institutions. Of course, वहाँ पे एक MOFCOM है, वो आगे देखते हैं, वो जो, as I said, institutional mechanisms. But then these are things which will, you have to convince the Chinese financial institutions. वहाँ पे एक Exim Bank है, Exim Bank, Import-Export Bank of China. That is where then you have to convince the bank people, not the government. The government is convinced, okay, this is a good project. But then the Exim Bank comes in, and then you have to convince them. And when you start convincing the financial institutions, it is a very difficult thing. And you have to, the project has to be financially viable. 2 + 2 needs to be equal to 5. Only then will the bank come in. No bank is willing to sort of give you money which they think you're not going to return. Because if you can't return a loan, then of course it is an issue, it is a problem, it becomes a huge problem, and your credibility is badly damaged. Here is a person who is an institution where we looked at a project, we thought they told us they will do this, they will do that, they will do this, and of course they know how these things function. But then when there are political interferences, the change of governments and all that, for that they are not then willing to give you money. So you have to convince the Chinese financial institutions. It's a difficult job, and not difficult, but doable. But you need people who can convince them of how this project is, how will the returns come, from where will the revenues come, how are we going to return the loan, how are we going to return the interest on the loan, how is the capital amount will be returned, when will it be returned, and what kind of concessions would you want. If the concessions are too much, then of course they say, okay, no. They have, you see, these international banks and international institutions and these big countries, they have a lot of opportunities to invest in other areas. Why should they put their money in places where there's no return on investment? They can put it somewhere else and get a good return on it. Then, of course, financials, where you have to look at what kind of guarantees are you going to willing to give to the Chinese. Sovereign guarantees means that the government of Pakistan, in fact, the state of Pakistan, is guaranteeing that this amount will be returned whatever happens. If the project is good or bad, whatever happens, we will return this money, and that sovereign guarantee is then pledged by the government of Pakistan. But the issue now here is that how good our sovereign guarantees are, how sort of credible our sovereign guarantees are, how many sovereign guarantees have we given to the people, and what is our history in returning these sovereign guarantees. So ये एक चीज है. These are issues now. Then Debt Limitation Act है पाकिस्तान में, where you can't borrow beyond a certain limit. Debt to GDP ratio, or there are other things which frankly I don't want to go into, or I'm not a very sort of expert on this. So Debt Limitation Act aa jata hai. You can't, such a huge project of ML1 with $9 billion, your capacity to pay, your GDP is not that much, your revenues are not that much. तो वो फिर गवर्नमेंट ने एक लिमिट लगाई हुई. Beyond this, you cannot take debts. आप कर्जे नहीं ले सकते. Because taking loans is one thing, not bad. Taking loans for a financially viable project, nothing wrong. Taking loans for a project which repays itself, very good. But then the problem is when you take these loans and you can't repay it, that is when the problems start. That is then where the countries start defaulting, that is where your credibility goes for a 6, and that is where then other people, other countries, other institutions, they're not willing to give you anything because you don't have the capacity to repay. And then, of course, एक होता है your public sector development projects. PSDP के projects हैं, उसके एक certain limit है. Now, for example, in 2018, our limit had gone up, the PSDP had gone up to beyond 1,000 billion rupees. Ab it has come down to even, I think, 650 or something billion rupees. So 400 billion ka, there's a cut on the public sector development projects. So the government doesn't have money. So where the total projects that are being taken by the government in the development side are equivalent to 650 billion. Here is a ML1 project, which itself is $9 billion. So $9 billion are multiply by 230. I think it reaches about 1,500 billion rupees. To a country whose total PSDP, public sector development programs, total in the energy sector, in the agriculture sector, in the transport sector, in the railway sector, in the water sector, you name it, tamam 650 billion rupees. And here is one project that is costing you 1,500 billion rupees. Kaise hoga? How are you going to do it? So yeah, these are issues, that is why I'm, flagging all these things for you. कि ये चीजें हैं, how do you handle all this? The government now, if you take ML1 project to the government means the planning commission, the finance department, your total government, take it up to the cabinet, they'll say, okay, here the total outlay of our development budget is 650 billion. And here is one project that is going to cost us 1,500 billion. How do you do it? Kaise kare? You don't have that capacity to pay. So then you have to convince. So ye cheezein hain. So there's no engineering up to now. As you can see very clearly, isme koi engineering nahi hai. This is now the environment of that project. So you need to understand the environment and the dynamics of the project के किस तरह होता है. अब ये तो CPEC के बाद मैंने कर ली. अब I've talked generally of even finances of the region, of how it will be affected, why it is required, why does China want it, why does Pakistan